now that I'm saved, can I just live however I want?
This is exactly kind of what is happening in our world and what we see, where people are kind of saying, well, I'll do whatever I want, when I want, and God will forgive me. And that's totally not Christianity. And this is exactly kind of what Paul is talking about in Romans 6, verse 15, where he's talking about these people being under the law and how they used to be under the law, which under the law actually means that they found their righteousness in the law, in the commands of God and stuff like that. But now they're under grace because of what Jesus has done, because of his life on earth and because of his death and because of his resurrection. Now we can be made right before God through grace. And so these people are saying, well, since I don't have to do this anymore to be right, why can't I just do whatever I want and then God will forgive me later, kind of thing. And then later Paul says, by no means. And he's just saying, no, that's not how you're supposed to live it. And our righteousness should lead us towards like this holiness and towards wanting to be like Christ. It shouldn't just be kind of like, well, I can do whatever I want. And it doesn't mean that at all. And so my question is, are you like abusing what God has given you as grace? Like he's given you grace so that you'll live with him and be in relationship with him, not to just do whatever. The law is actually a good thing. Later on we see in Romans 7 that he says the law is holy, that it's righteous, and that it's good. It's good and it's righteous and it's holy. It's because it shows us our faults and it shows us where we need to be more and more like Christ. And are you trying to do that in your daily Bible reading and stuff like that? Are you trying, or are you abusing God's love and his grace? Here we see in verse 17 and 18 that we used to be slaves to sin, but now we are slaves to righteousness, which I think is it's an awesome thing, and I'm very glad I'm not over there anymore and slaves to sin. But here's the thing, it's the slavery thing, the term is, I think it's kind of weird, but like in some circles slavery is kind of a bad term, but like think about this, like and how if we're slaves to God, then that would mean that, you know, we're supposed to dedicate our life to him, give him our all. And it's not this like bad master thing where he's like hitting us all the time or, you know, something like that, but it's a perfect boss, kind of like a perfect boss that you might have. And some of us don't, but think of the perfect boss that you would be able to listen to and that you would want to do whatever you could to help the business, to help that. And it's the same thing with God. Like we need to dedicate our lives and give him fully committed lives, and so that we can further his kingdom. And so my question is, like, what's in your way of kind of giving everything to holiness and to this righteousness, and why are you not living a life that is completely just given to your master? As we see in verse 19, we used to give our whole selves to sin and just foolishness, wickedness, and just all kind of junk. But now, as slaves of God, we're supposed to offer our bodies and give our all to this holiness type life and this holy life, this integrity life towards Christ and for Christ's glory. And this whole thing is, we got justified from what Jesus has done, which means that we are declared righteous, and now we're in this whole state where we're living in sanctification. With sanctification is where we're just being more free of sin. That doesn't mean that we're going to become perfect, but it's just, you know, hey, I had anger problems, or hey, I had jealousy problems, hey, I had this kind of problem, whatever yours is. And you can get into the Bible and you can see how it answers how we're supposed to deal with anger, how we're supposed to deal with all of our problems. And through that, we're becoming more free of sin. It doesn't come as much of a problem, where we're more and more becoming like Christ. But once again, it doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that the sin's not going to come back. But let's live a life to where we are becoming more free and that we are coming more like His image? Are you becoming more like Christ's image every day? And if not, why not? Like, why are you just kind of just living in a life that's not? As we see in verse 22, we are set free from sin, and that means the power of sin. That doesn't mean that we can kind of do whatever we want, or that we will never be tempted, or that we'll never sin, or feel guilty about sin. That doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that now that we're not going to die because of our sin, because of what Jesus has done. And so now my plea and my urge is for you guys to live this life where you are slaves and constantly just obeying your master. And if you're not, please examine and just think over, this whole entire week, this whole rest of the day, this whole rest of the night, about, am I living this whole life out like this dude's talking about with Christianity? Or am I just doing what they were saying earlier? I'll just kind of throw the law out, throw everything out, and I'll just kind of live whatever way I want. And I'll pretty much just abuse God's love and His grace. And my thing is, let's live and let's walk in a straight way to where we're just freeing ourselves from sin. And once again, that doesn't mean that we're perfect, but that means that we're dropping sin because of Christ, because we want to be more and more shaped into Christ's image. So let's walk in a way that we are coming more and more like Christ.